So some of the best arguments that I've seen for the existence of a god, and some of the most popular ones, seem to be the ones that seek to find him in the unknown. And these are arguments like the Kalam cosmological argument, the transcendental argument, St. Thomas Aquinas' five ways, and basically what these seem to do is point out that there is no other explanation. That you boil something down, and there must be this first cause, and there must be this first mover, and there must be some intelligent design to give us consciousness and thoughts and, things how we see it. Because what else could it possibly be? And the issue I have with this is it tends to lean more towards God of the Gaps fallacy territory. And the issue here is, throughout human history, many different cultures and religions have come up with a number of supernatural explanations to explain natural phenomena. Solar eclipses, the sun rising and setting, seasons changing, natural disasters, insect swarms, diseases, things that we just didn't have a good explanation for. You try going to someone tens of thousands of years ago and explaining to them that the change of seasons is caused by Earth's tilt on its axis as it orbits around the sun, they're not going to have the first clue what you're talking about. So it's one of those situations where, yes, we didn't have a good explanation back then. Hence people said, what else could it possibly be? Now we've come up with actual better scientific-based, reliable explanations for these things. So it just doesn't make sense to me to continue to use this way of thinking that has failed us a number of times in the past, repeatedly. It just has not proven to be reliable. Because another thing you have to remember is we are not at the peak of human development, of human knowledge, of discovery. We haven't figured out everything that there is to figure out about the universe. We haven't even figured out what all is underneath our feet right now. What all is buried beneath the ground, what all is at the bottom of our own oceans. And some of us sit here and say not only that they know what created the universe, but that some of the best arguments they have for this is, well, what else could it possibly be? This just doesn't make sense to me. Could it possibly be that the answers could be actual natural scientific-based explanations that we just haven't even begun to figure out yet? Because let's be honest, in comparison to all that can be known about the universe, I would seriously doubt we've come much further than people 50,000 years ago. In comparison. Yes, we've come a long way, but there's a lot to know, and there's a lot that we don't know. And to just say, oh, well, we've crossed out all the other explanations, we haven't, though. Or at least we can't verify that we have crossed out all of the explanations, because we don't know if we have all of the explanations. So, these arguments, I like listening to them, I'm not going to lie, especially listening to William Lane Craig explain the Kalam cosmological argument. I loved it. And a lot of these arguments, they make sense. But right at the end, when they boil everything down, they strip away all, science can't explain any of this, they then go, therefore it must be a god. And I follow them, and then suddenly they're on the other side of a canyon, and I'm trying to figure out how they got there. Because even if you completely stripped away all scientific understanding that we have, if you've disproven everything that we know through science, you still have not put any forward motion towards proving a god exists. Because just because other things don't explain it doesn't mean it simply must be a god. It's not some default position. I could just as easily say, well, it could have been a giant rainbow space cat that pooped us out during the intergalactic laser wars of Stardate E370 in hopes that we would become the next prime species rising out of the ashes of a war-torn multiverse. We're no closer to disproving or proving my rainbow space cat than we are to proving or disproving a god, for as far as I can see, because we just don't have the evidence. And lack of evidence for something else is not evidence for a god. So, I hope that we continue to have these conversations. I hope the cosmological argument, the transcendental argument, if I can speak, I hope they don't go away. I hope it's something that we can keep thinking about, and keep trying to find answers through scientific means, through philosophical means, maybe even through spiritual means, because who knows? It could be a God. It really could be, as far as I know. But we just aren't there yet, and especially people who say, well, not only is it a God, not only do I know that it must have been a creator, but I know that it's a God, and I know it's specifically my God, and I know the things that this God is and wants because I have a book that tells me. Let's slow down a little bit. There's all good thought experiments, and it's all good things to talk about, but it still doesn't really get us to actual evidence of a God when we point to these systems.